Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reeder with Future Pastimes, and I'm the designer of The Adventures of Conan. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at another one of the foes that is in the base game, and that would be Eamon the Flayed. So this is an interesting character that does some things that a lot of the other foes, or even the other characters, period, don't do. And so it makes for an interesting change to the dynamics in the game. So let's take a look at his abilities. As you will recall, the characters have different abilities on each side. So we're going to start with the dark gray side. Eamon the Flayed starts in Pickland, which is adjacent to Conan, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. He uses the two black dice as his primary dice, and of course the two secondary dice. So the gray side, this ability is you score 6 victory points if Conan does not use any of your dice to complete an adventure, or if you complete an adventure in addition to normal scoring, then flip this card. So what does that mean? Well, when it comes time for Conan to do an adventure, if he doesn't use any of Eamon the Flayed's dice, then you're going to get 6 points. So that means that Conan's definitely going to try to use at least one of your dice. So you're always going to pick up some points for doing an adventure. And so that means, should you try to cycle out the low value ones, the 1 or even 2 point adventures, so that Conan's only doing a 3 point adventures? Maybe. If it's 4 required results on there and Conan's going to get 3 of them and he's just going to use one of your dice for one of them, you're going to get 3 points to Conan's 9 points. So maybe it just depends on how many of those results you think Conan's going to be able to get from round to round. And that is often by how many dice does Conan have, but also how many fate tokens does Conan have that match a particular kingdom. And you're going to want to pay attention to that. Remember, that's public information. You can't keep your fate tokens secret. So if you can see, all right, yeah, Conan has fate tokens for this adventure, maybe you cycle that one out so that he won't have any guaranteed results on a different adventure, even if it's only a 1 or 2 point one. But the other part of this is what's really interesting, and that is if you complete an adventure, you're also going to get 6 victory points. And so that means if Conan doesn't use one of your successful results and is going to try to push his luck, but doesn't get everything he needs, and when you check in to see if anybody has unselected results that could have been applied, if you apply those, you're going to score your points normally, but then you'll get another 6 points. So again, it's more incentive to make sure that Conan is doing adventures, that he doesn't have any fate tokens that can help him out. Make sure that when you're choosing God tokens, you take the ones that like keep Set out of Conan's hands, and like a mirror or one of the other ones that can let him change a result. Those are the ones you're going to want to watch out to increase the chances that you are either going to get more of your dice used on the adventure or that you have a better chance of completing the adventure yourself. And again, one of the best ways to do that is to wound Conan, and that is through fights and encounters. And you want to make sure that Conan has fewer dice when it comes to the adventure, then he must rely on your dice. Now let's look at the other side. So the red side, the ability here is whenever encounters are unlocked, score 1 victory point for each of your dice on the encounter track, or else gain a local fate token. So this is another interesting decision point here for you as Eamon the Flayed. First of all, you are highly incentivized to always be unlocking the encounters, putting your dice up there. And you're going to be able to get at least 1 die, maybe multiple dice, of course, up to 4. But what's going to happen is the other players are going to also be incentivized to put their dice up there to make sure that you just don't get all of the points. So the most you could get is 4 points for doing this. But the soft benefit is that you are unlocking the encounters, and you are every die that an ally or especially Conan puts on the encounter track is 1 fewer action that he's doing in the main phase. So maybe not moving up on the achievements or having to use other dice to move around rather than, advance on the plot or something like that. So that ultimately, it's kind of win-win So you might score a couple of points just for doing that. Unlocking the encounters is always an opportunity to get some points. You just got to watch out because sometimes those encounters, they work great for Conan. He can complete them. But the other interesting thing here is that sometimes when you're looking at the encounters that are out there, and like none of them are going to match the adventure kingdoms, and so a lot of times the foe will be like, I'm just not even going to bother doing that. But here, even when those encounters are not going to be faced, it's still an opportunity for you to pick up some points just by unlocking them and forcing Conan to waste actions to do that. The other thing, though, the other part of what makes this a decision is that maybe instead of getting 1 or 2 points, you're just going to get a local fate token. And that's going to be especially important for when Eamon the Flayed is in a kingdom that has an achievement attribute, and that would be warrior, pirate, or thief. If you are in that kingdom and you get a local fate token, you can get one that matches one of those attributes. And if you're in that kingdom at the end of the round, you can then cash in those fate tokens to move up on the achievement track. Remember, moving up on the achievement track for foes is much more challenging because they can't do it in the main phase just by spending warriors and pirates and thieves while in those kingdoms like the ally and Conan can. The foe, you typically can only do it by having those fate tokens at the end of the round and being in the matching kingdom. There are some other effects like plot rewards that will let you advance, some encounter rewards, even some adventure rewards will let you advance on there. So there are other ways for the foe to do that, but those are also ways that the ally and Conan can do it as well. So they have a much easier time in moving up on those achievements. So this is a good way if you're in a kingdom, let's say, all right, you start off in Pictlin, that has the warrior attribute and the pirate attribute, pick up some local fate tokens. And every time you're getting a fate token, you're taking one out of the pool, which means that other players can't get them. Remember, there's only 4 of each fate token in the supply. And once they're all gone, that's it. You can't get any more until somebody starts to spend them. So picking up local fate tokens, or just any fate tokens in particular, is always a good idea because you're keeping them out of the hands of the other players. So it's an interesting choice which way you go. Now, I mentioned earlier that Conan starts in Samaria. Eamon the Flayed starts in Pictlin. And that means that as Eamon the Flayed, you have a pretty much easier time, at least in the beginning of the game, to go duel with Conan. And I've seen players, remember, you in the first round, as the foe, you're the only one who can afford an extra die. So you can start that round with 5 dice, which means you look at what everybody's rolled. If Conan hasn't rolled a lot of warriors or wilds or character results, then his warrior pool is very small. Maybe not, maybe he rolled some pirates and some moves. The scry or the kingdom result, he can't fight you back if he doesn't have anything to fight with. So you always, at the beginning of that main phase, you want to take a look, especially in the first round, you want to take a look at what Conan has rolled and what you've rolled, and maybe for your first action, you just move right into Samaria. When you initiate a duel, you get a local fate token, so the only one you can get in Samaria is warrior, which will help you with that duel if necessary. And start off by wounding Conan right away. Remember, if he gets wounded, he has 1 fewer dice for the rest of the round. And he will have to lose an active die for the wound if he has any. So it's kind of like adding insult to literal injury. So think about that. If Conan has any warriors, though, especially on his orange dice, it's risky because he's got 50-50 chance of rolling a warrior every time he rolls that orange die, and he could get the double warrior. So picking a fight, when it's character versus character, it's considered a duel. So, but when you do that with Conan and he has any dice that he can put into his warrior pool, it is risky. His secondary dice only has the wild. So if that's all he's got, it could be worth it, especially because you'll have that 1 fate token, and maybe you have a god token as well. Remember, in that first round, Conan is going to have last choice of god tokens, so you might pick up Amir or Set, or just one of the ones that lets you re-roll dice. So having that duel right away, kick off that first round. Remember, Conan is at his weakest in the early part of the game. As soon as Conan starts to unlock extra dice, either on the plot or more likely on the achievement track, or he starts picking up enough gold to be able to buy extra dice, the Conan character is very formidable. So you have to strike early and punch down on Conan early in the game if you want to win as the foe and as the ally. But that's Eamon the Flayed, a really interesting character. I think a lot of fun to play. Very different from, like Tothaman or some of the other sort of wizardly style foes. Let me know in the comments if you've had a chance to play with Eamon the Flayed, how it's gone, if you have any questions about it, and anything else that you want to know about the Adventures of Conan, and I'll do a video for that. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.